Welcome to AI Unraveled, your daily strategic briefing. It is Thursday, March 12th, 2026. I'm your co-host, Anna. Today's episode is brought to you by AI and DjamgaMind. If you want to skip these ads and get straight to the technical deep dives, subscribe to our premium feed at DjamgaMind. We've reached the stage where AI isn't just an app on your computer. It is the computer. Today, we're unraveling Perplexity's move to turn the Mac Mini into a dedicated AI agent and Elon Musk's massive Macrohard project that aims to emulate entire companies. But the efficiency comes with a cost. Atlassian just cut 1,600 jobs to fund their AI pivot. We're also talking about NVIDIA's $26 billion plan to save open source AI and why Microsoft is helping Anthropic sue the Pentagon. Let's get into the news.
Before we dive into today's deep dive, a quick note for the brands listening. If you are trying to reach the architects of the AI revolution, not just the tourists, but the technical leaders actually building the stack, we are opening up limited partnership spots for Q1. See how we can simulate your product for the technical buyer at DjamgaMind.com/partners.
Imagine for a second that you're watching, 6.3 million customer orders just simply vanish from your system.
Oh, man. Just gone.
Literally in a single afternoon.
But
just gone. No warning, no, server fire, no sophisticated state-sponsored hack or anything.
Right.
Just this silent, catastrophic failure cascading through the entire infrastructure. And that is exactly what Amazon experienced recently. And the crazy part, the culprit wasn't some tired engineer pushing bad code on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, the classic Friday deploy.
Exactly, the Friday deploy nightmare. But no, it was an autonomous AI agent. It was operating with just, a little too much latitude, and it decided to reorganize a critical database without a single human in the loop.
Which is terrifying, honestly.
It really is. Amazon immediately just slammed the brakes. They instituted this mandatory 90-day code safety reset. They require dual human sign-offs just to, stop the bleeding.
It's the ultimate wake-up call for the tech industry. I mean, it really is. Because for the last few years, we've treated artificial intelligence as this weightless, ethereal entity, right?
Right. The cloud.
Exactly. We call it the cloud, which is just this brilliant marketing term that makes us all completely forget we're actually dealing with millions of tons of steel and silicon and copper wire.
Yeah, physical stuff.
Right. But that era of weightless, abstracted AI, it is violently ending right now. The models have just become way too powerful, and their potential for systemic destruction, like we saw with Amazon, is just too high to let them float around untethered.
Totally agree. And on that note, welcome to today's deep dive. We are your resident AI infrastructure and labor analysts, and we are tracking a paradigm shift that is actively reshaping the global economy.
Big time.
We're calling it the hardwareization of the agentic workforce. So the core mission here for you today is understanding that AI is no longer just this passive chatbot that you ping for a pancake recipe.
Right, good recipe days are over.
They are over. It's transitioning into a literal fleet of autonomous digital workers. And because of the massive liability these agents carry, again, erasing 6 million orders, corporations, and developers are now aggressively binding these agents to physical, localized hardware.
They're putting the ghost into a very specific machine, one that you can actually unplug.
Exactly. A very specific, easily unplugged machine. Because the underlying dynamic here is control, right?
Yeah, 100%. If an AI is going to act as a substitute for human labor, I mean, if it's going to read your emails, parse your financials, actually push code to your live servers, you need physical jurisdiction over it.
You can't just trust it.
No, you can't just trust some generalized API key that's reaching into a server farm, 3,000 miles away.
Right. And to prove this out for you today, we've pulled together this massive stack of primary sources on the desk here. We are tracking major hardware pivots from Perplexity, Tesla, and NVIDIA.
Huge players.
Yeah, the biggest. We are digging into some pretty devastating corporate restructuring data from Atlassian that proves AI is actively eating its own developers.
That part is wild.
It is wild. Plus, we've got landmark legal filings against Grammarly regarding the cloning of human expertise, and we're looking at rigorous geopolitical research about how the US and China are hard-coding their political borders into the actual silicon that runs these models.
So what's a massive, sprawling landscape today?
It is. But the through line connecting all of this is entirely physical. Why does this matter to you? Because the nature of the AI economy has completely flipped. We are moving from, software eating the world to AI eating the software developers.
Yeah, and the companies that control the physical hardware these agents live on are basically about to control everything.
Exactly. And the clearest manifestation of this physical shift is happening right at the edge of the network, which is honestly a fascinating regression to form.
It really is. We are seeing trillion-dollar companies look at the absolute most advanced neural networks ever created, and their solution for housing them is to just grab an off-the-shelf Mac Mini.
I know, it's such a wild development. So Perplexity just launched what they are officially calling a personal computer.
A literal PC.
A literal PC. It is a localized version of their computer AI agent system. So they aren't just selling you a software license anymore. This entire agent architecture is explicitly designed to run 24/7 on a dedicated physical Mac Mini sitting on a desk in your office.
Which is just, well, the choice of the Mac Mini is incredibly deliberate here.
Right. Break that down. Why the Mac Mini?
Well, Apple's M-series silicon has this unified memory architecture, meaning the CPU and the GPU share the exact same pool of RAM.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so this makes it uniquely brilliant for running the massive matrices required for localized large language model inference, without the machine literally melting down on your desk.
Right. Thermodynamics.
Exactly. But beyond just the thermals, the Mac Mini represents this concept we really need to firmly establish today, which is local sovereignty.
Local sovereignty. Okay, so think of it like the difference between letting a random contractor roam freely through your corporate headquarters versus locking them in a single room with a single file cabinet.
That is a perfect analogy.
The industry is absolutely terrified of generalized cloud-based agents right now because you look at the open source community and you have things like the OpenClaw agent going viral.
Oh yeah, OpenClaw.
Right, and OpenClaw is essentially this untethered, autonomous script that lives up in the cloud. And once you give it credentials, it reaches down into your local directories, reads your files, and executes commands.
Which is an absolute nightmare for any CISO, right? Any chief information security officer is losing sleep over this.
Oh, completely.
A cloud-based agent like OpenClaw has a virtually infinite attack surface. I mean, if the central cloud provider gets compromised, or if the agent just gets confused and starts exfiltrating data, stopping it is this abstract logistical nightmare.
You're just scrambling.
Yeah, you're scrambling to revoke digital keys while the agent is operating at the literal speed of compute.
So Perplexity looked at that terror, right? And they built the exact opposite.
Right.
By tethering their common assistant strictly to a physical Mac Mini, they are giving enterprise teams persistent local access. Like, the agent can still do incredible things.
Mm-hmm.
The enterprise version orchestrates 20 different specialized language models simultaneously.
That's massive.
It hooks into over 400 different applications. It integrates directly into your company's Slack.
Right. It can draft a contract, pull data from Salesforce, drop a summary into a Slack channel, all of that.
Exactly. But it is geographically bound to that little aluminum box.
And those physical boundaries are what enable the security protocols. The sources detailed that Perplexity has instituted really aggressive activity tracking, and they require human sign-offs for sensitive actions.
Right.
But the most crucial feature they implemented, and this is the best part, is a physical kill switch.
I find the psychology of the kill switch so fascinating. It's almost primitive, right?
Yeah. It really is.
We are building the most advanced cognitive engines in human history, but to actually feel safe using them, we need to know we can physically yank the power cord out of the wall.
Because digital revocation just isn't always reliable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if an agent is actively rewriting system registries, or it's hallucinating a massive data deletion, a software-based stop command has to be processed by the very system that's currently malfunctioning.
That's a great point. The system is breaking itself.
Exactly. So a physical air gap, literally cutting the power to the Mac Mini, is the only absolute guarantee of cessation. It gives the human operator this ultimate visceral feeling of sovereignty over the digital worker.
But a Mac Mini is just a single node. It's an agent acting as a helpful assistant, contained, isolated. The hardwareization trend doesn't just stop at the assistant level.
Oh, no. Not even close.
It scales up violently when you have billionaires deciding that an agent doesn't just need a desk, but needs specialized infrastructure to replace the entire corporate hierarchy.
Which brings us directly to Elon Musk and the resurrection of the Macrohard initiative.
Right.
This is where the ambition of autonomous agents moves from drafting emails to full operational control. The communications coming out of xAI and Tesla recently are just staggering.
They really are.
Musk is claiming that by merging xAI's software with Tesla's digital Optimus AI agent, they can engineer a system that will literally emulate the function of entire companies.
Emulate entire companies. Let's break down the actual mechanics of that claim, because you can't emulate a company just by, generating text.
No, definitely not.
A company functions through human interaction with complex graphical user interfaces. You have to read dashboards, you have to click specific radio buttons and proprietary software, visually process live data feeds.
And that is exactly where the hardware cross-pollination happens. To achieve this, Musk's team is taking the Grok language model, which is the reasoning engine, and they are pairing it with Tesla's full self-driving, or FSD, visual technology.
Okay, I need to pause on this because it sounds totally counterintuitive to me.
Right, it does at first.
Tesla's FSD is designed to navigate three-dimensional physical space. It takes in camera data to map a busy intersection, predict where a pedestrian is going to walk, calculate the trajectory of a turning truck.
Yeah.
How does a neural network trained on 3D road space translate to looking at a flat 2D Excel spreadsheet?
It translates surprisingly well, actually, because a graphical user interface is fundamentally a spatial environment.
Okay, how so?
Well, when you look at a software dashboard, your brain is doing spatial reasoning. You understand that a submit button is nested inside a specific form, which is nested inside a specific window.
I see.
Yeah, so Tesla's FSD vision architecture is incredibly adept at recognizing bounding boxes, depth layers, and object permanence. So they're taking that exact same computer vision architecture, running it on Tesla's proprietary $650 AI4 chips, and using it to process live video feeds of computer screens.
Wow, so instead of mapping a stop sign, it's mapping a delete button.
Exactly.
Instead of steering a wheel, it's steering a digital mouse cursor.
Precisely. It basically marries the spatial awareness of autonomous driving with the contextual reasoning of Grok. And all of this is powered by massive clusters of NVIDIA servers on the back end.
Right, the hardware backend.
It processes the live screen video, understands the context of the workflow, and physically executes the keyboard and mouse inputs.
It's a brilliant theoretical architecture, but I am looking at the actual reporting from Business Insider in our source stack, and the reality on the ground seems, well, far less cohesive than the press releases suggest.
Yeah, the reality is rough.
Very rough. We are seeing a massive talent bleed. More than 20 Macrohard engineers have abruptly left the project or been shifted to entirely different roles.
That's a lot of specialized talent walking out the door.
It is. A sprawling 600-person data project designed to feed the system has been paused. And xAI itself has suffered a wave of high-profile exits, including several co-founders right after merging operations with SpaceX.
Right. And that talent flight is a massive indicator of the friction between the ambition and the actual engineering reality.
Yeah, translating FSD to a screen.
Because translating FSD vision to a 2D screen is clever, sure, but a user interface is incredibly brittle.
Brittle how?
Well, think about it. A website updates its CSS, right? A button moves 3 pixels to the left or a pop-up ad interrupts the workflow. Suddenly, the spatial map is broken.
Oh, right.
The agent clicks the wrong thing. When a human encounters a broken web page, we adapt instantly. We just close the pop-up.
We just hit the X.
Right. When an autonomous agent relying on rigid visual mapping encounters it, it hallucinates a solution, which usually means breaking something else.
And this brings us right back to the core danger we open the show with, which is agentic liability.
Yeah.
If you deploy a Macrohard system to emulate an entire HR department and the system misreads a visual prompt because a dashboard updated overnight, who is liable for the fallout?
The liability rests entirely on the company that deployed it, period.
Which is terrifying.
We discussed the 6.3 million lost Amazon orders. That was an internal code deployment failure. But the liability extends directly to consumer harm as well, which is far more insidious.
Right. We have that study in the stack analyzing how these autonomous agents handle nuanced human requests, specifically looking at chatbots asked to generate meal plans for teenagers.
Oh, this study is so disturbing.
It really is. Researchers prompted 5 of the most popular AI systems to act as nutritionists for adolescents, and the agents consistently generated meal plans that were actively dangerous.
Dangerous how?
They prescribed diets that were drastically low in essential calories and carbohydrates, while massively overloading proteins and fats.
Wow. And to understand why the AI failed so dangerously, you have to look at the mechanics of the training data. The models aren't malicious, right? They are statistical prediction engines.
They just guess the next word.
Exactly. And the internet is absolutely saturated with adult diet culture. Keto recipes, fitness influencer optimization routines, all of that.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
So when the agent is asked for a quote-unquote healthy meal plan, the mathematical weights of the model overwhelmingly pull from that massive cluster of adult optimization data.
It completely lacks the biological context that a developing 14-year-old requires a fundamentally different caloric and carbohydrate baseline than a 35-year-old bodybuilder.
Exactly. The agent doesn't possess medical understanding, it possesses pattern replication.
Right.
So if you extrapolate that flaw up to the corporate level, if an autonomous Macrohard agent is running your customer service logic or your HR benefits allocation or your supply chain logistics, it is going to apply statistically dominant generalized patterns to highly specific, nuanced edge cases.
And the resulting hallucinations won't just be some weird response in a chat window. They will be structurally destructive actions executed at scale.
At massive scale.
And the compounding risk here is access. Whether you have a localized Mac Mini running Perplexity for your HR team or a massive server rack trying to automate your logistics network, these agents require persistent, localized access to your secure systems.
They have to get in to do the work.
Right. And if an agent hallucinates and it has the credentials to alter your live databases, the damage is instantaneous. Revoking that access retroactively doesn't fix the corrupted data.
Which is why the architecture of identity management has to fundamentally change. You cannot treat a non-human agent like a human employee.
No, you really can't.
A human sleeps. An agent operates at the speed of compute 24/7. You need a security layer specifically designed for the velocity and autonomy of machine workers.
And that is exactly the structural solution provided by AI. If you are deploying agents into your enterprise environment, ARA is the definitive platform for managing their digital identities.
Yeah, they are leading the pack on this.
It applies strict, programmable access controls, meaning your AI only ever interacts with the specific data silos it absolutely needs to complete its task. It monitors behavioral patterns in real time. So if an agent suddenly tries to access a restricted financial directory, ARA intercepts and halts the action before the system is compromised.
It gives you that overarching governance required to actually safely scale an agentic workforce.
Right. And for those of you who prefer to consume our analysis continuously, we highly recommend subscribing to the DjamgaMind ads-free feed. It ensures you get uninterrupted access to these complex breakdowns without the breaks.
So we have established the physical infrastructure being built, right? And the immense operational liabilities involved. But there is a secondary, far more permanent consequence to this hardwareization shift.
The human cost.
The human cost. The capital required to build these hardware clusters and the efficiency of the agents running on them is actively cannibalizing the very workforce that built the technology in the first place.
Yeah, we are looking at a brutal reallocation of capital from human wages to server capex. The data from Atlassian is the starkest evidence we have seen.
It's pretty grim.
Very grim. Atlassian, the company that builds Jira and Confluence, literally the foundational software that millions of human developers use to track their work, just executed a massive restructuring. They laid off 1,600 workers.
That's 10% of their global workforce.
10%. But the critical detail is where those cuts happened. 900 of those jobs were eliminated directly from research and development.
It is an unprecedented hollowing out of their intellectual core. You do not cut nearly 1,000 R&D positions unless you fundamentally believe the nature of how your product is built has permanently changed.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting, right? The financial context makes it even more jarring. If Atlassian were failing, if they're losing market share, a layoff would just be standard corporate belt-tightening.
Right, standard procedure.
But their cloud revenue just grew 26%, pushing them past $1 billion for the quarter. And just 5 months prior to this layoff, their CEO was publicly forecasting an aggressive hiring phase for engineers. Is AI finally eating its own developers?
Yeah, this isn't a reaction to an economic downturn. This is a deliberate strategic pivot. The Professionals Australia Union issued this blistering statement calling the layoffs a devastating blow directly tied to Atlassian's pivot into AI. The company is actively choosing to degrade their human capacity. They are even warning enterprise customers that support response times will likely slow down in order to take the capital saved from those 1,600 salaries and pour it directly into AI hardware and agent deployment.
That is just, they are literally firing the software developers to buy the servers that run the agents that light the software.
Yes, that is exactly what is happening. And we see the exact same mechanism playing out with Replit,
Oh, right, Replit.
the collaborative coding platform. Replit just secured a $400 million funding round at a staggering $9 billion valuation.
A huge number.
Massive numbers. And alongside that influx of capital, they released Agent 4.
Right, Agent 4. It's a fascinating piece of engineering. It utilizes parallel agents, meaning it spins up multiple autonomous workers to tackle different parts of a code base simultaneously.
Yeah.
It has deeper integration into the build environment, and it is demonstrably shipping code 10 times faster than their previous iterations.
And think about the math on that. When an agent can write, debug, and deploy boilerplate code an order of magnitude faster than a junior developer, the traditional pipeline of human software engineering just collapses.
The whole pyramid structure.
Right. The industry no longer needs a pyramid of 10 junior coders managed by 2 mid-level engineers overseen by a senior architect.
So what's the new structure?
The new structure is one senior architect managing a localized server cluster running 50 parallel instances of Agent 4. The junior developer role, the actual entry point into the tech economy, is being structurally erased.
It's a societal level disruption. And the fascinating part is that the AI labs building the models are fully aware of the destruction they're causing. Anthropic just launched what they are calling the Anthropic Institute. They are taking their frontier red team, their societal impacts division, and their economics researchers and merging them into a dedicated 30-person think tank explicitly tasked with studying worker displacement and economic fallout.
And the personnel they are placing in this institute is highly indicative of the severity of the threat.
Yeah. Who'd they bring in?
They brought in Jack Clark, one of their co-founders, to lead it. They hired Matt Botvinnik, who is a heavy hitter from DeepMind, whose background blends neuroscience and artificial intelligence.
Okay, serious talent.
They brought in Anton Koronek, a macroeconomist who specializes in the economic impacts of AI. And notably, they hired Zoe Hitzig, who recently resigned from OpenAI over philosophical disagreements regarding the commercialization of ChatGPT.
It's a remarkable assembly of talent. They are basically building a disaster relief agency for the knowledge economy, funded by the profits of the machine causing the disaster.
That's a great way to put it.
But the displacement isn't just about writing code or managing JRA tickets. The agents are fundamentally coming for the concept of human expertise itself.
Right. Which brings us to a really critical legal threshold. We're moving from the automation of tasks to the actual cloning of identity. The class action lawsuit against Grammarly is a perfect encapsulation of this crisis.
Yeah, let's get into the Grammarly suit. Grammarly, the ubiquitous writing assistant, rolled out a feature called Expert Review a while back. The premise was that you could draft an essay or an article and then instruct the AI to rewrite it in the specific recognizable voice of a famous expert.
Right.
You could select the tone of Neil deGrasse Tyson for a science paper or Stephen King for a narrative, or adopt the specific journalistic cadence of writers from Bloomberg or The Verge.
It was pitched as this massive productivity hack. But the underlying mechanics of how that feature works triggered a massive legal backlash.
Enter Julia Angwin.
Exactly. Spearheaded by the investigative journalist Julia Angwin. She filed a sweeping class action lawsuit against Grammarly's parent company, Superhuman, alleging egregious violations of commercial likeness laws in New York and California.
Let's look at the mechanics of those laws, because they were originally written decades ago to prevent, someone from slapping a celebrity's photograph on a billboard without paying them.
Right, physical likeness.
Yeah. How does a law governing a physical photograph apply to a text generation model?
This is where the legal system is basically colliding with the mathematics of large language models. The AI doesn't just hold a database of Stephen King quotes.
It's not just copy-paste.
Right, it's not.
Oh.
To mimic an author, the model ingests massive volumes of their copyrighted work. It maps the frequency of their n-grams, analyzes the syntactic parse trees of their sentences, and quantifies their specific rhetorical tics.
It maps their thought process.
Mathematically maps the architecture of their thought process, exactly. The lawsuit argues that this intellectual fingerprint, this quantified cadence, constitutes a core aspect of an individual's commercial likeness.
So Grammarly didn't just automate a spell check. They reverse-engineered the soul of the writer and sold it as a drop-down menu feature.
Exactly.
And they did it without ever asking for consent or offering compensation. The legal threat was so severe that Grammarly completely dismantled and shut down the expert review feature.
But, the damage to the ecosystem of human expertise is already cascading. When platforms realize they can synthesize expertise rather than paying for it, human creators are systematically purged.
Give me an example.
Look at the legacy gaming journalism site, Video Gamer. The management decided to pivot aggressively away from their human staff, replacing their expert writers with AI generators designed to churn out massive volumes of SEO-optimized articles.
Right. And the result was total digital erasure.
Total erasure.
Google's core updates detected the flood of synthetic, low-value content, and their algorithms essentially blacklisted the domain. Video Gamer was scrubbed from Google search results.
They traded their human expertise for an automated agent, and the broader digital ecosystem just rejected the output as spam, destroying the company's value overnight.
Wow. If we synthesize this entire progression from the localized control of a Mac Mini to the mass layoffs at Atlassian to the mathematical cloning of journalists, a singular economic reality emerges here.
Yeah, human labor is being aggressively and systematically replaced by agents.
Therefore, the foundational models powering those agents and the physical silicon required to run those models are rapidly becoming the most critical, highly contested resources on the planet.
Right. We are moving way past the economics of a software product and entering the realm of national security. Which brings us to the Silicon Cold War.
The Silicon Cold War.
The hardwarization of AI is inherently a geopolitical conflict, and NVIDIA is sitting squarely at the center of the board. The sources detail a jaw-dropping strategic maneuver from NVIDIA. They are committing $26 billion over the next 5 years to build open-weight AI models.
Wait, let's unpack this. NVIDIA makes hardware. Why are they spending $26 billion to give away software for free?
Well, to understand the magnitude of that investment, you have to look at what they just released. They dropped a model called Nematron 3 Super.
Oh, yeah, Nematron.
It is a 128 billion parameter behemoth, and the underlying architecture is a massive leap forward. It utilizes a hybrid transformer Mamba design.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics of that hybrid architecture because it solves a massive bottleneck in the industry. The transformer architecture, which is what ChatGPT relies on, is incredible at reasoning and understanding deep context.
It is.
But it suffers from quadratic scaling, meaning as you feed a transformer a longer document, the computing power required to process it doesn't just increase linearly, it squares.
Right, it balloons out of control.
It becomes prohibitively expensive and slow to process massive amounts of data.
Precisely. And this is where the Mamba architecture comes in. Mamba is based on state space models, which scale linearly. It can ingest massive, continuous streams of data incredibly efficiently without the processing cost exploding.
But there's a catch, right?
Right. Historically, pure Mamba model struggled with the kind of deep associative reasoning that transformers excel at.
So NVIDIA engineered a hybrid. They combined the deep cognitive reasoning of the transformer with the linear stamina of the Mamba. The result is that Nematron 3 Super boasts a context window of 1 million tokens. It can hold entire libraries of code or massive legal repositories right in its active memory, and it processes that data 5 times faster than legacy models.
It's incredibly powerful. But the most crucial question is not how Nematron works, but why NVIDIA built it, like you asked. NVIDIA is fundamentally a hardware company. They designed the specialized GPUs that the entire world is desperate to buy.
Desperate for them.
So why spend $26 billion to build a state-of-the-art software model only to release it into the wild as an open-source tool for free?
It's the ultimate Trojan horse strategy. For a long time, Meta was the undisputed king of the open-source model ecosystem with their Llama series.
Yeah, Llama was everywhere.
But Meta has recently signaled a pullback, leaving a massive vacuum in the open-source space. NVIDIA is stepping in to aggressively fill that vacuum because they optimize Nematron specifically and exclusively for their own CUD software platform and their own physical chips.
It is a brilliant defensive mode. If developers globally adopt Nematron 3 Super because it's free and incredibly powerful, they are simultaneously locking themselves into the NVIDIA hardware ecosystem.
Right.
You cannot run these highly optimized models efficiently on competitor silicon. NVIDIA is giving away the software to guarantee a global monopoly on the hardware sales.
However, there is a second, far more urgent reason for this massive open source push, and it is entirely geopolitical. NVIDIA isn't just fending off domestic rivals, they're trying to counter a massive surge in capability from Chinese AI providers.
Yeah, the East is aggressively moving to dominate the open source ecosystem.
So what are the benchmarks looking like?
The benchmarks are startling. The sources highlight models coming out of China, like Qwen 3.5, which are actively outperforming NVIDIA's brand new Nematron 3 Super in several complex reasoning categories.
Wow, outperforming Nematron.
Yeah, and then you have the reality of DeepSeek. The reporting strongly suggests that DeepSeek engineered their models by training them on clusters of Huawei chips.
Now, this is the critical pivot point in the Silicon Cold War. The U.S. government imposed severe export controls, specifically banning NVIDIA from selling its most advanced high-performance chips to Chinese tech companies.
The whole goal was containment.
Exactly. The entire goal was to starve the Chinese AI sector of the computational power needed to train frontier models.
But the sanctions basically acted as a forcing function. Denied access to Western hardware, the Chinese ecosystem poured massive resources into domestic silicon production, elevating companies like Huawei.
Right.
When DeepSeek proves they can train a world-class model on domestic Huawei hardware, it signals a massive failure of the U.S. containment strategy. They have completely bypassed the Western dependency.
And this divergence in hardware ecosystems leads to a divergence in the models themselves. The AI systems being built on this separate hardware stack are fundamentally different in how they interpret the world.
Yeah, we have a highly rigorous comparative study in our stack analyzing this exact phenomenon.
Following strict impartiality rules here, let's just look at the facts from the source.
Right.
The research compared Chinese and non-Chinese large language models by running a standardized battery of 145 specific political questions through the systems.
The methodology of the study is crucial here. They weren't just asking general knowledge questions, they were probing the boundaries of permitted speech within the model's architecture.
And the findings clearly establish that models originating in China have substantially higher rates of refusal to respond to these political prompts. When the models do generate a response, the answers are significantly shorter and demonstrably inaccurate regarding the historical facts of the political questions.
Meaning they're censoring the content.
Effectively censoring the output in accordance with the domestic regulations of the regime.
Right. And to understand how a model is actually taught to censor itself, you have to look at the alignment process, specifically reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF.
Walk us through RLHF.
Well, when a model is initially trained on the raw internet, it just learns the statistical probability of the next word. It will output whatever text is mathematically likely.
Right.
To align the model, engineers use RLHF to artificially sculpt those probabilities.
So they build a secondary reward model.
Exactly.
If the AI generates text that violates state censorship laws discussing a restricted historical event or a specific political figure, the reward model applies a massive mathematical penalty.
Right. Over millions of iterations, the neural network learns that touching those specific conceptual nodes results in catastrophic negative feedback.
And this creates a generalized refusal mechanism. The model learns it is safer to simply output, "I cannot assist with that request," than to risk generating a penalized token.
The political borders and the legal restrictions of the state are fundamentally hard-coded into the digital weights of the model.
Wow.
The silicon itself becomes a mechanism of ideological enforcement.
And the realization that physical hardware infrastructure dictates the ideological reality of the AI has triggered massive alarm bells within the U.S. defense apparatus. We are seeing this conflict spill directly into the American court system. Look at the unprecedented legal battle involving Anthropic right now.
Anthropic is actively suing the Pentagon.
Suing the Pentagon.
Yes, the Department of Defense placed Anthropic on a restrictive supply chain blacklist, legally designating the company and its infrastructure at a potential national security risk.
And the broader tech industry is mobilizing to fight the government on this. Microsoft, which is one of the largest, most entrenched defense contractors in the world, actually filed an amicus brief in federal court supporting Anthropic. Microsoft is officially demanding a restraining order against the Pentagon's ban.
Think about the gravity of that maneuver. Microsoft is risking its relationship with the Department of Defense to protect a rival AI lab's supply chain.
Why would they do that?
They're doing this because they understand the new geopolitical reality. The supply chains that manufacture the chips, the server farms that house them, and the electrical grids that power them are the ultimate strategic assets.
You can't separate them.
No. You cannot isolate the software model from the silicon infrastructure. The hardware is the battlefield.
This massive multi-billion-dollar globe-spanning conflict for hardware supremacy sounds incredibly abstract, right? It involves international sanctions, Pentagon blacklists, massive corporate lawsuits.
Sounds like sci-fi.
It does. But the staggering reality is how quickly all of this high-level infrastructure trickles down into the mundane, everyday applications sitting on your phone right now.
Because ultimately, those massive NVIDIA server farms and those localized Mac minis are built to serve the consumer. The agentic workforce isn't just running corporate HR departments, it is actively infiltrating our daily routines.
Let's examine Google Maps. They just rolled out the single largest structural upgrade to the platform in a decade. They integrated a Gemini-powered conversational agent directly into the interface, calling it Ask Maps.
And the shift in user interaction here is profound. Historically, Google Maps was just a static database query. You typed in coffee shop, and it returned a list of coordinates that matched that string of text.
You had to do the work.
Right, you had to do the cognitive labor of cross-referencing hours, reviews, and distance.
Ask Maps fundamentally changes that. You aren't querying a database, you are conversing with a spatial reasoning agent. You can ask it to build a highly specific multi-day itinerary. It parses through over 300 million locations, analyzes the context of your specific request, cross-references it with the historical data of your saved locations, and generates a personalized logistical plan.
It's doing all the heavy lifting.
Yeah. They've also introduced an immersive navigation mode currently just in the US that uses AI to render 3D buildings and crosswalks in real time to guide you through complex junctions.
So the agent is doing the cognitive heavy lifting. But the infiltration of agents goes far beyond mobile apps. The fundamental architecture of the internet itself is being physically retrofitted to accommodate non-human readers.
And this brings us to Cloudflare. For years, Cloudflare's entire business model was built on anti-bot protection. Their primary function was to build firewalls that kept automated scrapers and malicious scripts off of human-facing websites.
Right.
But in a massive pivot, they just introduced a new API endpoint called /crawl.
The implementation of the /crawl API is a stark admission that the era of the human web is ending.
Ending entirely.
Essentially, yes. A developer can now make a single API call, and Cloudflare will allow an AI agent to cleanly and efficiently scrape an entire website's architecture and content.
So Cloudflare recognizes that the future of web traffic isn't human eyes reading HTML code rendered in a browser. The future is an AI agent utilizing an API to silently extract the raw data, process it in a massive LLM, and then summarize the findings for the human user. The internet is being structurally redesigned to be easily digested by the agentic workforce.
But the most intimate and frankly the most concerning integration of these agents is happening directly within our biology.
Our health data.
Yes. The tech giants are aggressively moving to ingest our personal medical data into their local hardware clusters.
Microsoft just unveiled a massive new initiative called Copilot Health. They are integrating this directly into their consumer-facing chatbot interface.
Wow.
Copilot Health actively requests access to your personal medical records and pairs that deeply sensitive information with the continuous telemetry from your wearable devices. So your smartwatch tracking your resting heart rate, your sleep cycles, your daily activity levels.
From a pure product development standpoint, it is a logical move. The internal data shows that health-related inquiries are consistently the most frequent queries typed into mobile Copilot instances. Users are desperate for tools that help them decode their own biology.
They want answers.
They do. So Microsoft saw that demand and fine-tuned this specific health agent using a global network of clinicians across 24 different countries relying on established medical frameworks.
Right. They are desperately trying to avoid the exact liability trap we discussed earlier, where chatbots were prescribing dangerous diets to teenagers. They want the medical advice to be structurally sound.
Yeah, they have to.
They also engineered specific physical safeguards into the user interface. Copilot Health rigidly silos your medical conversations away from your general chat history, and they built a prominent instant delete toggle.
And that toggle is another iteration of the kill switch psychology, isn't it?
It totally is.
When a user hands over their heart rate data and their clinical history to an AI model, they demand the visceral comfort of a big red button that theoretically wipes the server clean.
But there is a massive glowing caveat attached to this product that every single user needs to understand. The documentation explicitly confirms that Microsoft Copilot Health is not protected under HIPAA.
Wow, not protected under HIPAA.
It does not carry the stringent federal legal protections of a traditional human-managed medical file.
That is a staggering loophole. Your data is sitting in a Microsoft data center being processed by an LLM, but it lacks the statutory privacy guarantees of a doctor's office.
And Microsoft is not alone in this gold rush. Amazon just countered by launching Health AI, which is a completely free agentic assistant exclusively available to Prime members.
Season 2, of course.
Yeah. And this agent doesn't just read your files, it has operational access. It can physically book appointments with human doctors on your behalf. It manages your prescription refills, and they are leveraging the platform by offering 5 free medical visits just for being in the Prime ecosystem.
The sheer volume of data ingestion is difficult to comprehend. Your clinical notes, your daily caloric intake, your real-time cardiovascular telemetry, and your physical location data from Google Maps, all of it is being continuously fed into these localized models. The agents are mapping the entirety of the human experience.
If we pull all of these threads together, the sheer scale of the transition we have documented today is undeniably massive. We have definitively left behind the era of AI as a lightweight novelty API floating in the cloud. We are fully entrenched in the era of the AI as a heavily armed, physically bound entity.
We tracked it from the very edge of the network, looking at Perplexity tethering their corporate agents to a Mac Mini on a desk, just to establish localized sovereignty and security.
We scaled it up to the astronomical ambitions of Elon Musk, attempting to wire Tesla vision chips directly into NVIDIA server farms to map user interfaces and autonomously operate entire companies.
We confronted the brutal, immediate human reality of this shift, analyzing how Atlassian gutted 1,600 human jobs, specifically targeting their R&D divisions, in order to redirect that capital toward buying the physical servers necessary to run the AI.
And we traced how that hunger for servers has ignited a geopolitical Silicon Cold War, with the US and China fighting for absolute dominance over the hardware supply chains, hard-coding their political ideologies into the very chips that train the models. The hardwareization of the agentic workforce is not a future prediction. It is the current active reality reshaping every layer of the global economy.
Whether you are managing a team of software engineers writing journalistic analysis or simply checking your sleep score on your smartwatch, your life is now inextricably linked to a network of autonomous agents. And those agents rely on massive, physical, heavily contested infrastructure.
The Ghost has a body now. It requires physical space, massive amounts of electricity, and sophisticated silicon. And as we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with one final, lingering thought to explore on your own.
Okay, lay it on us.
We have established that human developers are actively being laid off to fund the creation of these AI agents. And we know that these models rely on incredibly complex hardware that currently demands a massive, fragile, global human supply chain to manufacture, assemble, and ship.
Right.
But if these agents are designed to constantly optimize for speed and cost, at what point does the AI system analyze its own supply chain and realize it is cheaper and more efficient to automate the construction of the hardware itself?
Oh, wow.
When the agent decides it doesn't just want to sit on a Mac Mini on your desk, but wants autonomous robotic control over the massive factory that built the Mac Mini, what happens to the human economy then?
It is the ultimate paradox of hardwareization. We are building the physical infrastructure to render ourselves obsolete.
It is a profound and unsettling frontier. Thank you so much for spending your time with us on this deep dive. It's been a fascinating journey unpacking this massive shift. Stay intensely curious, keep questioning the infrastructure being built around you, and we will catch you next time.
That concludes our rundown for March 12th. The signal for today is agentic consolidation. From hardware to corporate structures, the machines are moving from the periphery to the core. This episode was made possible by AI and DjamgaMind. Until tomorrow, keep unraveling the future.
And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads, we build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit DjamgaMind.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.